direct that just a little bit to not only the state of Washington, but particularly to your district. Yeah. Do you have an economic vision? Do you have answers as to how to pull jobs back after all the devastation that you've just so vividly described, Joe?
Yeah, so our district is in the heart of the timber industry. So the timber industry built the Pacific Northwest, and it was really gutted at the altar of, for one, environmentalism, over-regulation, which is tragically, and this is a sad story, it's led to the timber industry just being destroyed. So a job that a young man could get right out of high school was being a logger. I mean, for generations, they could go and get that job, minimum training, very hard work. What's that?
You look like a logger yourself.
That's actually, my folks originally are from Virginia. My dad came out to the Northwest because he got a job in the Forest Service. But yeah, and so this was the economic backbone of the state of the Pacific Northwest, of Washington State, of Oregon, Idaho. And what happened was, with over environmental regulation, we killed off those jobs. But also tragically, once we killed off those jobs, we stopped harvesting our own timber. There's a huge economic factor there. Now we import timber, which is absolute insanity here. But also, our forests stopped being managed. You look at all these wildfires that have just absolutely wreaked havoc on the West. Now, we had a very wet spring here, so I think we're okay, knock on wood, going into this summer. But every summer for the last decade, it's been a nail biter. I mean, I had to evacuate 2 summers ago. We had to evacuate where I live because the fires were within 15 miles. And the problem is, when these fires start, either man-made or start naturally, because the forests haven't been cleared out, the service roads to really intersect the forests, the national forests out here, they're not maintained because it was the loggers that were maintaining them. So now, tragically, we said environmentalism, we need to stop logging. And so, as opposed to letting the earth provide for us, now it burns. But also, our timber.
What action can you take, and how are you going to bring jobs back?
So a big one is deregulation. So the Environmental Protection Agency has absolutely wreaked havoc upon pretty much any natural resources industry. So massive amounts of deregulation, but also, look, the federal government controls, I think it's about 60% of the West, the land in the West in general. Mm-hmm. We need to turn a lot more of that over to the states, and then it has to come with a clause because, again, our progressive governor, he would just do the exact same crazy environmental policies. But if we turn it over to the states, it has to come with a clause that the majority of it is then sold to the private industry. And I honestly trust the private timber industry to maintain the forest better than I do the federal government, because I mean, the environmentalists will sell it and say, like, oh, these guys, if you sell it to them or give them control of it, they're going to go out and they're going to clear it, they're going to slash and burn it as fast as they possibly can, which is simply not the case. These logging companies that have been harvesting timber here for decades, they have a huge tree renewal program, and that creates more jobs. So you have lumberjacks out cutting down timber, you have a whole crew that goes in, and this isn't just guys out randomly planting trees. This is a very scientific project. It's monitored, and so this is a place the deregulation and turning the land back over to the state government and to the private sector. That is a huge part of it. But also, our timber mills used to employ even more people. That was our manufacturing industry. We'd harvest the timber out here in the Northwest, and then it would go to these massive mills. In my district in Camas, Washington, we had the second biggest timber processing and pulp plant in the world, but it has been slowly bought off by global entities like the Koch brothers, and it has been slowly shipped overseas. So at one point in time, not that long ago, 10, 15 years ago, it employed over 1,000 people. At its height, it employed about 2,000 people. It's down to a skeleton crew now of about 150 people. And the Koch Industries and Georgia Pacific, they'll say, oh, that's because there's a drop in demand, but that's just simply not true. All of the jobs have been dissolved. The taxpayers end up paying for those because the workers have to be retrained in accordance with the Trade Discompensation Act. So
new jobs.
Yeah, and then new industries. Yeah, so bringing back timber is key, but also new jobs. Like right now, everybody's looking at Taiwan, because of the situation. China is acting aggressively towards Taiwan. Taiwan is valuable because of its semiconductor production. And out here in the Pacific Northwest, us in Silicon Valley, we are the home of the technology industry. When Bill Gates, Microsoft, all that, it started here in the Northwest. So we have a very tech-ready workforce. We used to produce semiconductors and microchips here in the district. Our district has countless ports. We have the Pacific Ocean to our west. We have the Columbia River that flows, provides access into the continental United States. Semiconductors, they take a lot of water to produce. We have a ton of water. We have a ton of ports. So the semiconductor processing, I think, needs to be moved out of Taiwan. We need to not rely on Taiwan for that capability. Bring it back here to America. Our district is a perfect candidate for that. And then same thing with any other kind of shipping. Just because of our ports, we're able to get either to ships to go inland on the Columbia, or we also have a good deal of railroad infrastructure as well. So we have a lot of progress that can be made, and same thing with energy as well. We have offshore energy capabilities. We have wind, we have solar,
Awesome.
we have all that can be produced here.
Those are exciting answers, and I really appreciate them. Before we let go, though, once again, and you'll find I'm always driving toward this. So you win. What do you do? Like day one, what's your program? How do you get something across? How do you actually have an impact, Joe?
Yeah, so I think the deregulation absolutely key with the EPA turning the lands back over.
And you think you can affect that?
I think we can. I mean, we would honestly, with the Biden administration, I don't think this is going to happen until we can get President Trump back in 2024, another America first minded individual. But this stuff is important for us to articulate going into 24.
Gotcha.
So also, I think getting really hard on these industries like the Koch brothers and like Georgia Pacific that ship this capability overseas, like our ability to process timber. I think we need to very plainly say to these people, like, look, if you guys bring these capabilities back, we will give you incredible corporate tax incentives. We will provide you with government land for free to build facilities on. We will meet you halfway if you're willing to bring these jobs back to the district. But if you're not, we are going to use tariffs. Now, people hated Trump. A lot of folks hated Trump for his tariffs, but at some point we have to just realize that, look, America, because we respect life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, we respect human rights. America is never going to be able to compete with foreign labor markets. I mean, the Chinese are leading in foreign labor because they will literally lock people into sweatshops and slave factories, and they'll enslave them, right? So we can't compete with this, and this is where, unfortunately, tariffs are going to have to come in and say, look, if you want to sell things, if you want access to this massive American market, you're going to have to just make it here. You know, there's obviously exceptions for, I mean, we can't grow coffee here in America. So coffee importing, there's an issue there. But the vast majority of things we need in this country, we can produce here. It's our job to deregulate enough, offer up enough incentives that these corporations and these companies want to base here in America. But there does have to be that stick where we say, okay, if you're shipping it overseas, guy, sorry,